The foundation is cracking. The inner circle is crumbling. An insider whispers that Rory McIlroy is losing the one thing needs most, the faith of his own team. This isn't just about a miss, it's about a leader losing his locker room. How did the golden boy of golf find himself standing so alone? The story you're about to hear is one of pressure, fracture, and an empire under siege. If you live for golf's hidden dramas, Golf Insider is your source. Subscribe now and don't miss a moment of the unfolding drama. There was a time not so long ago when Rory McIlroy represented something unbreakable in the world of golf. He was the boy king who had fulfilled his prophecy. The for time, major champion with a swing so pure, it seemed authored by the gods of the game itself. But his greatness was never a solo act. It was built upon a foundation, a carefully constructed year of trust and loyalty that appeared as solid as any in For years, Rory's world was a perfectly balanced ecosystem. There was Erica Stahl, the woman who stood by him through a public and painful breakup with his former fiancée. The one credited with bringing a serene, stabilizing force to his high. They were the power couple, the picture of domestic bliss, a sanctuary away from the roaring galleries and the blinding spotlight. And then there was Shauna, more than a manager. He was a childhood friend from Ireland, a confidant who had ascended to the role of gatekeeper, strategist, and brother in arms. This was the core of the McIlroy. It was a trinity of personal and professional support that seemed impervious to the pressures that jatted lesser athletes. We watched him dominate. We watched him speak with eloquence and authority. And we saw in him a man who had it all figured out. The victories at the Wells Fargo, the Canadian Open, the RBC Cup, they weren't just wins. They were validations of a system that worked, of a king secure on his throne, surrounded by his most trusted knights. The narrative was set in stone. Rory McIlroy was not just a golfer, he was an institution. But what happens when the very walls of that institution begin to tremble, when depravate assurances and public smiles can no longer hide the fishes spreading through the foundation? The earthquake began, not with a roar on the golf course, but with the quiet, formal language of a legal filing in a It was in May of 2024 that the world learned Rory McIlroy had filed for divorce from his wife of 7 years, Erica. The news was a shockwave. This was the bedrock of his stability, the personal sanctuary he had. The public statement was, as expected, a masterclass in privacy, asking for respect for their family. Bhutan, the vacuum of detail, speculation rushed in. The perfect picture had developed a deep, undeniable crack. And then, before the dust could even begin to settle, a second tremor hit. In late May, just as the golf world was preparing for the season's toughest tests, news broke that McIlroy and Shauna Larity, his manager and best friend, had mutually agreed to part ways. This split was described as amicable, a word thought so often masks a universe often spoken tension and hurt. This wasn't just a business decision. This was a severing of a bond forged in childhood. Wasn't an employee he hired. He was a piece of home, a tangible link to the boy from Hollywood who dreamed of conquering the world. In the span of a few devastating weeks, the two pillars of Rory McIlroy's life, his personal rock, and his professional lieutenant, were gone. The empire was suddenly without its key architects. The official narrative was one of calm transition, but behind the scenes, a storm was brewing. The golf world held its breath. How would a man defined by his connections perform when his most vital connections had been severed? The answer would come on the most brutal stage imaginable under the burning North Carolina sun. Pinehurst, No. 2, June 16, 2024, a stage set for redemption. This was Rory's chance to silence the OFC course noise, to channel all the pain and turmoil into a decade defining, to end a 10-year major championship drought by conquering a beast of a course. For 71 holes, he was the Rory of old, fighting, scrambling, and willing himself into the lead. The narrative was writing itself. The hero, tested by personal hell, emerges triumphant. And then came the 72nd hole, a 2.5 FTPT for par. For a man of Rory McIlroy's caliber, it was a formality, a tap-in heckled make in his sleep. But the putter, which had been his nemesis for so long, betrayed him at the most catastrophic. The ball lipped out. The gas from the crowd was not just one-off surprise, it was one of shared agony. In that single, horrifying second, the entire weight of the past month, cemento, crashed down upon him. The divorce, the split from his manager, the pressure of a decade of questions, it all converged in that tiny white ball, as if he should cry out of the cup. Hugh would finish one stroke behind Bryson Chambeau, a man who embodies a polaropposite approach to the game and life. The images were heartbreaking. Rory rushing off the green, a portrait of Elman shattered. There were no words. His foes said it all. This wasn't a this was a public unraveling. It was the physical manifestation of a mind fractured by circumstance. Analysts dissected the technical flaw, but they were missing the point. This wasn't a failure of technique, it was a failure of spirit. The very composure he was known for had evaporated at the precise moment he needed it most, revealing Amin standing utterly alone in a crowd after his support system vanished with nothing but his own tortured thoughts for company. In the days following the soul-crushing defeat at Pinehurst, the story shifted from public sympathy to private turmoil. This is where the narrative turned from a tragedy to a controversy. The whispers began first in the corners of the locker room, then in the Qadir, finding their way into the headlines of publications like The Telegraph and The Daily Mail. Unknown Amal sources described as insiders and those close to the tours began to paint a picture of a camp in disarray. Their reports suggested that Rory's off-course distractions were creating a palpable tension within his team. That once unified group was now frayed. One source was quoted saying the team environment was not the same, and that distractions were becoming a. This is the most damning accusation for any elite athlete, but their personal life is causing them to lose the locker room. It implies a loss of focus, a loss of leadership, a loss of respect. These anonymous voice claimed that the steadfast loyalty he had once commanded was now being questioned. Was Rory McIlroy, the de facto leader of the PGA Tour in its war with LIV Golf, now losing the support of the very soldiers he was supposed to leading? The whispers suggested that this game was being affected not just by his own mind, but by the crumbling infrastructure around him. The caddy, Harry Diamond, a loyal friend himself, was now caught in the maelstrom. How does a caddy give a decisive yardage or read a crucial putt to a man whose world is collapsing? The controversy was no longer about a missed putt. It was about a fractured identity. The insider had spoken, and the message was clear. Viking's court was no longer steadfast. The very notion of Team McIlroy was now under fire. So where does the truth lie in all of this? Is Rory McIlroy truly losing his steam? Or are we witnessing the natural, if brutal, consequences of a man navigating a profound personal crisis? Let's weave the threads together. The divorce and the managerial split are indeniable public facts. The US Open collapse is a matter of painful public. The anonymous quotes are real, whether they represent a majority open or a vocal minority. The truth is likely a complex and uncomfortable blend of all these elements. It is human nature for those in an orbit around a superstar to feel unsettled when Thester's personal life implodes. Uncertainty breeds speculation, and speculation breeds dissent. The tension reported is likely the very real, very human awkwardness of not knowing what to say or how to act around a man experiencing such profound loss. Is it a mutiny? Probably not in the dramatic, treasonous sense, but it could be a quiet, creeping erosion of confidence. The team's morale is intrinsically into the leader's state of mind. When the leader is visibly wounded, the entire unit feels it. Rory's own silence since the US Open speaks volumes. He has withdrawn, licking his wounds, leaving the narrative to be shaped by others. His camp has put out statements, but they are crafted corporate and lack the warmth and authenticity he was once known for. This void is where the controversy thrives. The fundamental question we must ask is this: is the loss of support a cause of his downfall, or is it merely a symptom? The collapse of his personal life created a vacuum, and his professional collapse on the 72nd hole at Pinehurst gave permission for that vacuum to be filled with doubt, criticism, and the